Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me today. Well, you know, with RVs there's always something, and today we seem to have developed a small propane issue. Yeah, you heard me right, a propane issue. Well, not to worry, we're gonna figure this one out. Here on the Bighorn, we have two propane tanks, one on either side. On the off-door side, we have a regulator with a crossover valve, so you can switch between tanks. And what I noticed is that when the tank on the off-door side is empty, the regulator's not switching to the other tank. Well, I'm not sure that's entirely true. It may be switching, but I believe that I have another regulator issue. So this is the door side tank, and it has a hose that crosses through the middle of the storage bay to the other side to the regulator. But you can see here, this regulator, it actually reduces the pressure. You see it says, you might be able to see, it says 30 psi. These tanks are running about 100 pounds of pressure. This reduces it to 30 to kind of protect this hose going to the other side to the regulator. Now what I'm thinking is, rather than my regulator and my crossover valve being bad, I think that this little regulator is actually causing problems. And it's not uncommon, these do go out, but we're gonna run a couple little tests and see if we can diagnose it and determine whether that's the issue. Now we're over on the off-door side of the RV, and this is where the main regulator lives. So here's the main regulator. This is that crossover valve that I was talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut everything down, make sure all my propane appliances are turned off inside the rig, and this is the hose. See if you can see it. This is the hose that feeds the RV. I'm going to disconnect that hose, and I'm going to install my gas pressure test kit, which will tell me exactly how much pressure I'm getting out of this regulator and be able to see if I can diagnose the issue from the other side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up this propane test kit. It's a yellow jacket test kit, and it measures inches of water column. So this will tell you how much pressure you've got going into your rig. I was able to get this off Amazon. I'll put a link for it down below in the description, so you can check it out if you're interested in getting one. And I'm going to show you my thought process to testing that other regulator to see if it's performing as it should, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do to get access to this is I'm going to pull this cover off, but I have to get this hose out of the way. So I'm just going to disconnect it like this. It's pretty stiff, so we'll worry about that in a minute. I'm going to turn this down to the center so that I can get this cover off. This cover just snaps on, so we're able to pop it off just like this. There we go, and we'll get that cover out of our way. Let's set it over here. All right, now this is the hose coming from the other side, the other tank, as I mentioned, coming off of that 30-pound regulator. This is the hose, obviously, that comes up and goes to the propane tank. And then this is the hose here on the bottom that feeds the coach. So I'm going to pull that hose off and I'm gonna first pull this tank out of my way. So I'm gonna use 2 adjustable wrenches actually, and I'm gonna back up. You always wanna back up when you're loosening a hose. So I'm gonna back up here, and I'm gonna use my smaller wrench to loosen this hose. Just like that. Now this hose does swivel on this fitting. It's just a little stiff, so I'm just going to hold it gently with a pair of pliers on the male part, or the steel part, on the steel part of the hose. Just like that. All right, there's my gauge hooked up, and we're going to go on the other side. I'm going to go on the other side and turn on the other propane tank, and we'll see if we're getting any pressure. Okay, so I opened the other propane tank slowly to be able to get pressure in, and you can see we're at 10 inches of water column, which is exactly where we should be. And you can see that this turned red because I'm pointing toward the tank that's empty. So this tells me this tank is empty, but the way this valve works is it automatically switches. I've got 10 inches of water column, which is what I should have, because I'm getting pressure from the other tank. But because this arrow is pointing toward this tank, it tells me it's empty. So in this case, I would come out and I'd say, oh, this tank is empty, take it out to go refill it, and I would switch over to this tank. Now, this is telling me that tank is full. So it appears that I don't have an issue, but I have had an issue recently where it wouldn't switch to the other tank and I had no pressure. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch out that regulator on the other side. I went ahead and purchased one, so I'm gonna go ahead and swap it out, and then hopefully that'll take care of the intermittent issue that I've been having. Not really a clear diagnosis, but I've got the part, so I'm going to go ahead and swap it out. That's really the best I can do at this point. It looks like this regulator is working correctly, which is good. My other fear was that this was bad and I would have to replace it, but it seems to be working fine. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to swap this out is we're going to get this tank out of our way, make sure it's safely off. There we go. Now the critical part of this job is resealing the fitting. So you want to make sure these are sealed so they don't leak propane. So you have a couple options. You have a Teflon tape like you use in water plumbing, but this is a yellow tape. This is designed for propane or for gas. And then you have this pipe sealant. It's for potable water, natural gas, and a wide variety of fluids. This is more of a thread pipe dope that you spread on. All right, let's get started. This is the new regulator, and one thing that you want to pay close attention to, since these fittings are both the same size, this actually says out and this one says in, and there's even an arrow on the back pointing out. So you want to make sure that your tank goes in and that your pressure goes out to the other side, so it'll go just like that. But you want to pay close attention to that when you connect these so that you don't get it hooked up backwards. All right, let's install this new one. Get started. I went ahead and used the thread dope. All right, get the hose hooked back up. Now these old hoses are a little bit stiff, so I'll order a new set and I'll replace these hoses as well. All right, well there's one new regulator, and we'll get the tanks put back in, and then we'll check and make sure everything works. Got the gas turned on so we have pressure. Now we're going to take a solution of soapy water and we're going to spray these just to make sure that we don't have any leaks. Now if we had a leak, this would start to bubble up. We're looking good on both sides, no leaks. So let's move over and check the other side. Back over here on this side, we're going to do the same thing. Just going to spray. Well, we didn't disconnect that fitting, but we're going to check it anyway. No bubbles. Let's check that. No bubbles. This bottom fitting, we did take off. No bubbles. All right, quick update. It's a couple days later, and I went ahead and picked up the 2 propane hoses that I need. I've already installed the one on the other side, so it's good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and install this one, give you guys, show you guys that real quick, and then this job will be wrapped up. All right, so I've already removed the propane tank, and I took off this clamp. This new regulator I installed the other day has a flat here. I can put an adjustable wrench on and then pull this hose off. I'm happy with that. Let's turn this bottle on, get some pressure. Let's go ahead and spray with soapy solution. Make sure there's no leaks. No leaks. So we're good to go. Well, that just about wraps up the project today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time, safe travels. Bye.